Yes.
Do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think she's got a...
Sorry.
Hey, can we take the roll call, please?
Commissioner Cadwalder is absent. Commissioner Carney? Commissioner Zanstra is absent. He had a prior engagement tonight. Commissioner Gerard?
Present.
Commissioner Salcedo?
Here.
Commissioner Hall?
Here.
And Chair Hanley.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the absences?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Any abstains? Thank you. Those are approved. And we'll look to approve the agenda.
I'll move for approval of the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jim. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that is approved. And then approval of the minutes from last month's meeting, August 11th. I didn't see anything that looked out of order to me.
So I'll move for approval of the minutes as presented.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstains? Okay, minutes are approved. And at this time, we would open for any public comments concerning things not on the agenda. Anyone, everyone? Okay, and then moving on to old business. Review of our mixed-use zoning that we've been working on for the summer.
I had sent out revised agenda covers, taking that off.
Oh, okay. Was that by email? Oh, I did not read that, I apologize. Okay,
We just still need to do the workshop and the walkthrough, and just kind of schedule it.
okay.
So there's no more action for the commission at this point.
So there's no old business at this time?
Correct.
Okay, yay. So moving on to new business, unless there are any abstains to the no old business, or any no's. New business, the ordinance about temporary uses.
Andy's going to cover, I think, the details on this. We've gone through it.
Yeah.
We have a revision, proposed revision in front of you.
Yes. If you recall, several 3 months ago or so, when we had the 2 applications for the fireworks facilities, just in those temporary tents, I had suggested that the process for approving that seemed a little laborious given the very temporary nature of what they were doing. And in some other communities that we work for, we have something that we permit along with other temporary uses, and what I've called here is seasonal merchandise sales, where we can, where the city can approve administratively these temporary sales activities, like fruit stands or pumpkin sales, Christmas trees, fireworks, any other things like that sometimes pop up. Usually it's one of those 3 or 4 things. And so what I wrote here under, I'm skipping to the subsection B here. The stuff that's highlighted is what's new, everything else is already in your ordinance. And so I just have some provisions that allow this in the C3 district only, and then have some time requirements on it. So here I have it valid for a period of not more than 2 months and can be renewed for one more 2-month period after that. And then on the following page, there are just some sort of basic 7 standards there that are the standards that would be used in authorizing something like this. So if it's a sales of some use that may be not compatible or not particularly friendly to neighboring properties. That's something that the city could deny if it was necessary. And also it requires, basic site plan and just making sure that it's in a safe location. There's ample parking, there's ample room for people to move around, for traffic to get around and out of a parking lot, because usually that is where we see these, is in like a Meyer parking lot or something like that. Often we don't those kind of fire extents. So those are just some of the ideas. I'm certainly open to any suggestions that you have. I did make a note here that I think, and this isn't something for the planning commission, but I think that the city's has a separate ordinance that deals with solicitors, peddlers, and transient merchants. And I took a look at that a couple weeks ago, and I was reading through there, and I'm thinking that for this to work, that the city council might need to amend that ordinance, because if you read the definition for what a transient merchant is, in my mind, it falls pretty closely in line to what like a fireworks tent could be. And so that might be something that before this goes forward, the city council might have to take a little bit closer look at that, and see if that's something that they want to continue pursuing. The other thing that I kind of took the liberty of adding, and this was as the result of a phone conversation that Sue and I had a couple weeks ago, is back on the first page under subsection A, I've added this item number 3 here, which basically allows someone, like if their house burns down, to live in a trailer on that property for some temporary period of time while their house is being rebuilt. Again, I don't know if there's interest in that from you all and from the city, if there are concerns about that. But again, this is a provision I've seen in a number of other communities where it's just a very temporary thing. Obviously, they still have to meet health department regulations and stuff. But it's really for only to be used in a kind of catastrophic situation where somebody literally has no place else to live, and they need to have like a motor home or a mobile home maybe, or some sort of temporary housing arrangement on their property. So I put that in there for your consideration, and just something to think about. So at this point, Chair Hanley, I'll turn it back over to you if you have further questions for me.
Well, I guess I was looking for the email that John had sent us right after we had talked about the fireworks thing. And I wonder if this addresses any of that, or if it actually makes that situation worse. And I don't know if, John, you remember what you put in that email, if you wanted to talk a little bit about.
I'd have to think about it a little bit.
I do have the email here if you...
Yeah, primarily it was a cooperation issue that I saw. The tenants, and this was the fireworks stand that was adjacent to the farmer's market.
Okay.
And I forgot who the actual merchant was, but
Jake's, I think.
yes, okay. But the folks who were manning the tent at that time, they had a relatively large power generator going, and they had it on the side of the tent that was adjacent to the farmer's market. And so anyone walking around the farmer's market really couldn't hear. And then when the person in charge of the farmer's market asked them to move it, they said, no, we really don't have to. There's nothing that tells us we need to move it. And then it wasn't until that person actually called the ordinance enforcement officer, i.e. the police, did they get around to move it. And then secondarily, I think this was in the email, they also had 2 dogs there that, I don't remember if they were leashed or not, that's irrelevant, but they were just kind of wandering around, and that didn't look like it would be real conducive for a temporary merchant to have dogs there. I could see if it was in the evening for protection or something like that, but this was midday. And it just seemed a bit much to have those types of dogs there.
You also said temporary structure must show comprehensive dimensions of the usage need, inclusive of tent stakes, peripheral equipment, and support vehicles, i.e. trailers.
Yes. I don't recall exactly if there was a trailer, but the tent stakes themselves actually impinged on the farmer's market area.
And so they actually had to shift their setup that day. I don't know how much of an impact it really was. I don't go there week in and week out, but I could definitely tell that they had moved some of their structure, and I asked some of the trailers were positioned differently. And it actually wasn't as convenient for those walking around the farmer's market to walk up to those trailers who did have to move.
And while our discussion is not specific to that business, but I think that moving into making this what we wanted, how we wanted to fit with our needs, maybe we need to just consider some of those. I don't know.
Yeah. One of the benefits of the way we do it now is that you do have, since it is approved by a special land use planning commission, has a little bit more authority as far as the teeth and the approval that go into that typically. And I'm not sure if the ordinance has this language in there, but many ordinances in the special land use chapter talk about being able to suspend or revoke special land use permits if there's some sort of material violation, if they don't do what they said they're going to do, if they, don't build it or construct it or operate whatever facility it is in the way that they were approved, and then that gives you guys and the city some latitude to get them to comply and to do what they say. In this specific instance, it sounds, like a dog, for example, was never really contemplated as part of the site plan or anything else, so it's kind of an unusual situation. But some of the other stuff I don't recall on the site plan, them having the location of a generator or talking much about a generator. And obviously the area they had for the tent, that's kind of, it should have been everything, the farthest extreme, outside extensive, everything should have been inside that. And those are certainly things that we can work into this language if you, feel like you want to move forward with this. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm not going to be, offended if you don't want to make this any easier. Because for the merchants, it does. This is something that they now don't have to come to the planning commission for. There would not be a public hearing, so neighbors would not be notified under this proposed way of doing it. Again, this was a suggestion from me as just a way to kind of maybe make this a little simpler, because usually these things are so temporary that they come and go and they don't leave much of a footprint, and there's not a lot of effect. Obviously, in this case, that didn't work out that way. Maybe it was a good thing that they weren't approved under this new language, and instead there are some, further remedies if this is an issue with them next year if they come back. So I don't know, are you thinking that you want to hold off on this for a little bit, or think about it some more, or do you have any specific thoughts as to?
Other people? Jim, you must have thoughts.
I have thoughts. I would think that we want to be a little more stringent than what we are.
Harder
I just think-
than what we're doing now?
Yeah, I think what he's talking about is clarification, like the generator and like dogs. Yeah, I think we should be more stringent.
Okay. Jim, do you have thoughts?
Well, I've gone to the farmer's market quite often, and I don't know if there's a particular area that is assigned to them, or it depends on how many people show up that day.
I don't know.
So I guess going forward, maybe if the farmer markets from point A to point B, that is a designated area, then of course you're gonna have to have it, so the next tent needs to stay that restricted away, whatever that might be, for health or safety reasons.
But I don't think so much the farmer's market, it's just anybody in general.
Yeah.
Well, because the farmer's market, as I understand, may move next year, so. But I think John brings up some good points that we should really cover.
I think as a minimum, we should at least say something about animals, because I wouldn't think we'd want many animals around. You know, obviously, we're not gonna have anything beyond dogs or cats, but during business hours, I think it's fairly.
Cat.
Yeah. I think it's not, I guess, too onerous to prohibit animals.
But those are things we could add to this, so we can make it less restricted, or less paperwork, less red tape to kind of get to it, but then we can put some of these extra things on, like noise and animals and that, we can add that.
Yeah, absolutely. We can add, you know, additional standards here. You know, we can certainly add something about noise and generators. You know, we can add something that further sort of explains what needs to be on the site plan and maybe how it needs to be drawn, so that we're making sure that we're getting all the information that we need. You know, it's not always reasonable to get a full-blown engineered scale site plan for something like this, but certainly if they're saying they're going to have a, you know, 20 by 20 tent, then the expectation is that the 20 by 20 is what's going to be occupied. If they're occupying, you know, twice that with outdoor storage and trailers and generators and all this other stuff, then any of that is going to need to be disclosed on the site plan before it's approved. Otherwise, you know, it shouldn't be a problem.
Do you limit it to one vendor during that 2-month period on any given open property like that?
You could. I mean, you probably should anyways. I mean, we're now in the process of permitting these. We're calling them open air businesses. And it's a little unusual in that these are all parcels where there's a main use already happening on the site. On the case of the farmer's market, it's the
Tractor supply.
yeah, the tractor supply there, and then there's these other things that are kind of going on that are sort of their own uses, but you know, in some ways it makes me a little nervous having these. You almost run into an issue of having two principal uses on the same parcel, which the ordinance also doesn't allow. And so I think in my report I wrote something about these not being considered principal uses for this purpose because they're not the storage. But yet, certainly we could add something that says there's only one open air business, or in this case, temporary use, you know, per lot that shall be considered an accessory to whatever the primary or principal use of the property is. That way you're not ending up with, you know, 4 of these on some site. Or if there already is one, it may be the case of the farmer's market, we could or should have said, there's already something going here, move over one parcel and do it on the other side, you know, or something like that. Those are all things that we could write in here that might strengthen that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Couple of things. The one vendor may make some sense, but I don't see the farmer's market. We're kind of dwelling or getting into the farmer's market conversation. I don't see that falling into this temporary use, and maybe a reference to a single vendor might clarify that.
Okay.
Farmer's market seems to be more of a, you know, I don't know, it's multiple vendors. It's a longer period of time than 2 months. It doesn't seem to be as restricted, not as focused, maybe is the word I'm looking for. It is like the sale of pumpkins or Christmas trees or fireworks that are just those sort of short, very short period, very short seasonal types of things. Farmer's market is, I guess, maybe over several seasons. Zucchini season, tomato season, corn season. So maybe single vendor would help to clarify that. But farmer's market, I can see that coming back as a special use, and we are going to have some discussion about the location of the farmer's market next year, and that'll be coming up here and at the city council at some point too. The other two things, though, you talked about animals and noise. Maybe we need to get for you for clarification purposes. Remember, zoning is just one part of the overall code of ordinances for the city. And I want to be careful not to try to do those things in zoning that you want to apply citywide anyway. And things like animals, being on a leash, that kind of stuff, I mean, there may be a particular case here where, with the animals, where we may want to go back and look at our code of ordinances in general and not try to do, you know, that through zoning. Noises is another one that, you know, we may want to take a look at our code of ordinances and see if that would have some impact on money generator, running at a farmer's market or something like that. So I'm going to make a couple of notes. I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm trying to search for the language on noise because we just don't, off the top of my head, I can't think of it. But we'll look that stuff up, bring it back to you.
Okay. Other comments? So yes, Andy, we like it, we're just not done with it yet.
Okay.
Right, put them here.
If you have maybe some specific things that you think of, if you want to shoot us an email, we can work on this a little bit more between now and this planning commission meeting.
John had said in his email too, that I'll just bring up, that there would be a sense of cooperation with other businesses already existing in place. That would be something that we would require them to.
I don't know how you codify that.
Right.
It's
Right.
a good neighbor kind of something.
Be a good, yeah. Okay. And then the second ordinance, moving on to changing the amount of space, the floor area of buildings.
Could we go back to the first ordinance?
Sure.
I'm looking at number 3.
Oh, yeah.
Question I have, the 6-month time period. I think you said, Andy, that this is standard language that you've gotten. 6 months is the typical time period? Seems like a long time to me.
Yeah, it could be. You know, I suppose it just varies on a number of things. And this usually comes up where someone's either building a new house, or more often than not, when someone's house is, you know, burns down or something. And often, you know, they're left literally homeless for some period of time. And then, you know, I don't know what a typical process is. Thankfully, I've never been through anything. Well, I've never been to my house burning down. But I've been through an insurance claim process, which is by itself taken, you know, 3 months. And if it's, I mean, I can easily see, you know, 6 months being, you know, something they would take to get through that process, and something that somebody would need to live in for that long while their house is being rebuilt. I don't know that it's perfect. I don't know where 6 months came from. Honestly, I might have just worked it in here because it sounded good, but I don't necessarily have a scientific basis for that at this point.
Well,
Being a claims adjuster for an insurance company, I think that 6 months sounds a little short.
okay, fair enough. And you know, someone in a situation where they have a claim, their house burns, I think most people would be a little bit sympathetic to that, because they sure should be.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody wanting to remodel their home, do a significant remodeling job, and then move a trailer in for 6 months. And that was really what I had in mind, that it felt like it was 2 months. Too much.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can probably rework this language a little bit to maybe make it a little more specific to, you know, kind of a emergency only kind of
Show cause or
situation.
something.
Yeah, you know, catastrophic. Because again, I'm also not, you know, we've seen, you know, people that for whatever reason it's taken a long time for them simply to build a house. You know, they buy a lot, then something happens, and that takes them 2 years to get around to pulling their financing together and all this other stuff, actually building something. I don't think it's in, I don't think anyone would be enthused about having this trailer or something sitting on a lot for, you know, months or years or however long it might be, just because they can't get around to doing something. So this is really only here as a suggestion for that kind of catastrophic crisis situation. And so I can rework this language a little bit to maybe require that be demonstrated somehow in the application process to the city, that to show that this is what happened and, you know, this is what I need, and have it be for whatever minimum amount of time would be necessary until they can get back in. Because obviously to have this be as temporary as possible would be in everybody's best interest, it seems like.
Yeah, I guess the picture that came up in my mind is a house along Main Street on the east side of town. They decide to remodel, so they move in a trailer for 6 months, and I don't think that would look very presentable for visitors driving in to see that.
Mhm.
You know, I had circled manufactured home. I'm not sure how we define that. You want to maybe take a look at how we define that. Because I think in my mind, I think in your minds, I don't know, you have to tell me what's in your mind, but we're thinking about a RV that somebody might park. We're not thinking of them actually moving in a 16 by 80 single wide trailer.
I've seen both. I mean, I've heard of instances where people just live out of their motor home for a while or something. I've also seen language where people actually do place a manufactured home on their property. You know, again, that's a little more expensive and permanent situation and all of that than a motor home is.
Under those circumstances with that type of mobile, not a mobile home, whatever it is, modular, would you look up to the city water and sewer here in that area? They have to have something. And those RVs, I can understand driving it away and disposing of your waste, but.
One of the many issues that it raises is looking at utility hookups.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens in terms of setbacks.
Power.
Yeah, this is, you know, I don't know that, you know, a manufactured home makes sense. Maybe we could change it to an RV or something like that, so those issues don't come into play. And again, this is merely a suggestion based on our phone call from a couple weeks ago, so we can specifically authorize this kind of stuff and have something to point to, so. I can certainly look at this a little bit closer and figure out maybe the more appropriate language for that situation. Thank you.
The accessory buildings and the floor area of main compared to the floor area of main buildings. Second ordinance there. This is what we talked about last month. And it looks to be just what we talked about.
Try to keep it as simple as possible.
One comment I made, just a small thing, I noticed another one too. We probably would not refer to the Lowell Ledger, nothing against the Lowell Ledger. But if they ever changed their name, then we'd have to go back and try to research every place that we actually referred to the Lowell Ledger.
What do you guys publish normally then?
It's the Lowell Ledger.
Oh.
It's what the law is, a newspaper having general circulation. I mean, we could, you know, because we're a thriving metropolis, end up with another newspaper with a general circulation, and then be in this competitive process where, you know, we're trying to get the best price for placing advertisements.
Yeah. And for now, I mean, this is just something that's in here because it's kind of, you know, it's kind of run in the paper after it's adopted. So if it needs to change, we can definitely change it.
And the general circulation covers it, I think.
Yeah.
And again, nothing against the Lowell Ledger.
So with regard to this one, you'll see that, again, this is only in the C3 district. Are we allowing these accessory buildings to be equal to but not greater than the floor area of the main buildings? And for everything else in any other non-residential district, we're sticking to that 25%. If you guys are comfortable with this, you need to schedule a public hearing before you can recommend adoption to the city council.
Questions on this one? This one looks just like what we talked about, so. Do we want to schedule, do we have to vote on that? Schedule a public hearing for this?
You don't have to, I think, vote to schedule a public hearing, but we just want to know that you're comfortable with it before we actually schedule it.
Can we wait to do them both at the same time? Or does that not make sense?
This one is a little bit time sensitive.
Okay.
There is another issue coming, I think, where if we can get this one,
Let's do it.
we can get this one moving, it would be nice. Okay, we'll set your next meeting as a public hearing.
Okay. I'm sure there will be droves of people.
You never know.
Yeah. I'm always hopeful that there's some. Okay. Staff report?
The only thing I have is welcome Kelly.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you on board. We'll have, I say to all of you planning commission members, this is, because I work for the city council, this is the second most important board. But it is very important. The planning commission is very important to the future development of the city, and I certainly appreciate your willingness to serve. We can work with you on their training opportunities that are available to commissioners. I've kind of was thinking a little bit today too that we might even look at an October, November workshop as a part of your meeting, maybe spend an hour or so, because we do have several newer members, and it's always a good refresher for folks that have been around a little bit longer. And I noticed I didn't say old folks. I said the folks who've been around a while. But maybe we could do a sort of a planning and zoning essentials as a group, spend an hour or two. Is that something that you'd be interested in? And I guess I'll start looking at it. We probably have Andy do it.
I've done several of them.
Yeah, he has the PowerPoint slides ready to go. Just has to change the name to Lowell.
Hey Kelly, I know we have a joint meeting this month, I don't know the exact date.
It was September 22nd.
Yep.
Yes, there's a joint planning commission at Lowell Township
Township,
Hall.
yep.
At
That's right.
7 o'clock.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, we may work on it then. I saw some nodding heads. Maybe we'll work on something in, November's a good time to do that, or maybe in January, is when it was. But other than that, welcome.
Thank you.
Anything we can do, that's all.
Commissioner remarks?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Same here.
Kelly? I have nothing. No, thank you. All right. Well, thank you, and thanks, Kelly, for joining us. It is now 7:33, and I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
I'll
We have
move
to
for
vote on
adjournment.
that. Thank you.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Abstains? 7:33.